All right, hello everybody, and welcome to your second round of notes. Today is Monday the 14th, and I'm going to start off by talking about properties. Everything that you do in Edgenuity this year is open notes. I highly suggest go ahead and start writing these things down, um, and then you can use this as you're going through. So you can have these cheat codes, if you will, to go through there. But remember, this is just using your resources. This isn't considered cheating if you're writing down what I'm telling you and then going forward and using that on quizzes. So go ahead and pause the video, write down what you see here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started talking about these properties. Okay, so the first property we need to look at is the commutative property. And we don't need big long definitions, we just need to know what are we looking for. And so what we're looking for is the numbers change order. So this is important to start with. For commutative property, we need to know that the numbers are changing order. So for example, we could have something like this, where we have 3 plus 4, and it equals 4 plus 3. And we're just comparing the two sides here. And so the only thing that I notice is that the numbers have changed order. And it's true that they're both equal to 7, but they've just switched the order that they are. So that would be the commutative property. And you could also do this with multiplication. So 3 times 10 is equal to 10 times 3. So everything stays the same. We're doing multiplication in both sides. 10 and 3 are on both sides, but the only thing that's changing is the number order. Okay, so that would be commutative property. Good. The next one is associative property. And so for associative property, we're looking for, do the parentheses change order? So an example of the associative property would be this. So if I have 3 plus 5 plus 6, and here I have 3 plus 5 plus 6. And at any time, if you need to pause the video to write things down, please do. But this would be an example of an associative property because we're noticing what changed between the two. So between the two, the numbers are the exact same, 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 6. The operations are the same, plus, 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 plus. The only thing that has changed from this one to this one is the order of the parentheses. And so we know that if you're adding three things together, it doesn't matter which two you do first, they're still going to add up to the same thing. So if you notice what changed, it's just the parentheses order. That would be the associative property. Good. So these are the first two I would start with. Those are the ones that are, if you notice something has changed, ask yourself first, did the numbers change order or did the parentheses change order? Good. Probably the hardest one to recognize is this third one, the distributive property. So again, I would check for commutative or associative first, and then go on to identity, and then finish up with, if it's none of those, go to distributive property. Okay. So identity property, I'll skip to next. Identity property is saying, does it start and finish with the same number? And so identity property is if the number has the same identity, it will look something like this. So there's one way that you could start with the same number and that you finish with. 2 times 1 equals 2. Well, if you multiply anything by 1, it's going to give you the same identity at the end. So the fact that this number is the same identity as that one makes this the identity property. So you can multiply things by 1 and get the same number. Or the other way is if you see it like this, 2 plus 0 also equals 2. So again, that's the identity property because we're starting and finishing with the same number and we're doing something to it. And so adding 0 or multiplying by 1 is the identity property. Okay, so those three are the easiest ones to recognize. The fourth one here, the hardest, is distributive, and it says that all numbers in parentheses get multiplied. And so what that means is it kind of looks like the associative property where parentheses are changing, but there's multiplication going on. And that multiplied things in parentheses is different than the other properties here. So here's an example. So an example would be like this. 4 times the quantity, so that's a parentheses there. So in parentheses now, 3 plus 10. Okay, and so from elementary school, you learned the order of operations. You learned that parentheses should come first. 3 plus 10 is 13, and then you should do the multiplication after, 4 times 13. Now the problem with that is I don't know what 4 times 13 is off the top of my head. I might have to use a calculator. So I can actually use this distributive property to help me out to get this mentally. And what the distributive property is everything in the parentheses get multiplied first. So this is really going to be 4 times everything in here, which is 13. But I could do it separately. I could do it like this, where I draw lines. I'll draw them underneath so you can see them better. I could do 4 times 3 plus 4 times 10. And that would be the same as 4 times 13. And so that might actually help me. So the distributive property is these two, one big parentheses is going to be split up into different looking parentheses. I'm going to multiply each of them individually. So 4 times 3 plus 4 times 10. And so you can see that each one of these two things, so there were two things, two numbers, 1 and 2, 3 and 10, those two got split up into separate ones, and we're multiplying both of them. And so the benefit of that is that now I could do this mentally, because I should know these multiplication facts. 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 10 is 40, so 40 plus 12 is 52. So I can do that in my head, whereas 4 times 13 I might not be able to. Okay. So those are your properties, the 4 properties, and then we need to just be able to identify which one is going on in a long line of math. So let me scroll down here. So make sure you have those in front of you and use those to try and figure out the answers to these examples. Okay. Now let me talk to you real quick about something that is super important for middle school math. Okay. And this may seem off topic, but I promise you it's super helpful. Emotions, okay? When I see this problem right here, I might look at that and say, oh my goodness, that is really long. This looks like high school math. Why? I don't even know. I don't know where to start. And so that idea, that thought is going to pop into your mind, but we really need to slow down and just not let that affect the way that we solve this, because really this is just as simple as the examples I gave you. It just looks really long. So don't be intimidated. Don't let that emotions of self-doubt get in the way of you identifying the difference here. So I'm going to change my color here to red, and I'm going to say, okay, we just need to identify what has changed from this side to this side, what has changed. And then once you figure out what has changed there, then you just need to compare that to the 4 little cheat codes I gave you. Did the numbers change order? Did the parentheses change order? Did all the things in parentheses get multiplied? Or did we start and finish with the same number? So go ahead and try and solve these. If you want to pause the video for a second so that you can try and figure it out on your own, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to go ahead and go over the answer here. So what I notice when I'm comparing this side with this side is that the 4 was the last number, and now it's the first number. So everything else is the same. 359, 359, addition on both sides. The only thing that has changed is the number order. So that would be the commutative property. Okay. So I didn't have to do any of the work there. I just had to look at what changed and identify which one that was. Here's another example. Again, go ahead and pause the video to try and figure out which of those 4 it looks like to you. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and try and solve this. So looking at the two sides, I'm going to try and compare what changed. So what sticks out to me of what changed is this changed into this. So I see the parentheses look a little different, so I've got it narrowed down to 2 now. It's either the associative property or the distributive property. And so the parentheses kind of changed order, but I'm asking myself, did multiplication happen? And it looks like it did, because instead of doing 1 plus 4 is 5 and then multiplying, it looks like they took 2 times 1 and 2 times 4. 2 times 1 and 2 times 4. So when this happens, when everything inside the parentheses gets multiplied individually, this is the distributive property. So if you thought associative, you were on the right track there, but distributive is just when things are getting multiplied like so. Good. Again, here's another third example. You can pause the video to try and identify for yourself which one this is. Okay. So I'm going to be solving now. So I noticed that the number order has stayed the same, 8359, 8359. So it's not commutative. And I noticed that the big difference here is these parentheses. The parentheses have changed places on me. And so I need to ask myself, was there multiplication anywhere? Well, no, there was nothing in front of this one, and there was nothing in front of this one, and nothing has been multiplied. So this is not distributive because nothing's being multiplied out here. So this is the associative property. This is the associative property. Good. And a final example here. These ones, hopefully you can know which one this is. These ones are always going to be really short because there's only two ways that you can start and finish with the same number. You can either multiply by 1 or you can add 0. And so hopefully right away you can see they began and started with the same number. And so this would be the identity property. Okay. So that is all you need to know as far as properties go. This information can get you in Edgenuity all the way through your second quiz now. So you should be working on going through Edgenuity. You should be about through the number line section and taking that first quiz. So that would get you about 5% complete for the whole 9 weeks. With this information that you have now, this will take you to about 10% finished with the whole 9 weeks. So you should be able to finish your second quiz with this information. Okay. So good luck. If you have any questions, let us know.